Welcome everybody back to Two Dudes Views. I'm Quentin Scott. This is Matt Layton. This week we are talking about absentee voting and how we vote in general. And so really what kind of sparked this conversation between Matt and I earlier in the week was a article in the Daily Oklahoman about HB 1515. It's a House bill being pushed through by Logan County's newest state representative, Molly Jenkins, and it is to essentially, let me read the actual article, would require anyone who votes early or requests an absentee ballot to vote by mail to explain why they're doing so by selecting one of nine choices. And those nine choices that would only allow you to vote early or by absentee would be absence from jurisdiction, you're out of town, illness or disability, like you're going to be sick on election day, employment related, education related, military service, religion, serving as an election official, which would be those that actually work the polls that day, 75 years of age or older, or serving in jury duty. And so uh, that's the bill that is currently being passed. And so Matt and I were talking about it, and just kind of what absentee voting is, kind of voting early. We see a lot of early voting in Oklahoma just because it's an option. People don't have to get out and vote. They don't have to disrupt their workday. And so, Matt, what do you think about when it's affecting early or absentee voting, especially when it comes to local and state elections?
So, just at the base level, my first thought is why should we ever be worried or afraid of allowing the potential for more people to vote, right? So, I don't know where this bill is coming from. I have a hunch that it's all around, election fraud, fake people are voting, illegal aliens are voting, and yes, if that's a verifiable problem, we need to solve it. I don't think you solve that by shrinking the methods and times available for real citizens to vote, right? So
Yeah.
I probably believe there are some people that vote that shouldn't, whether that's nefarious or they just don't know. That probably happens, but are we legislating or are we managing to the exception or the minority here, right? If one in 10,000 votes is this way, why would we even consider hampering the valid or real or true voters' ability to vote in order to manage to the exception? That's kind of at the base case. That's what I think about this. I would be in favor of more ways and more time for everyone to vote, right? Because again, today it's almost a terminal disease in the fact that no one votes, right? So we've got an entire government of elected officials that are chosen by the minority of people, right? And many times the folks that are moved to vote in the highest numbers are either, single issue voters or they've got a point of view that may be on the fringe one, and I'm not saying which fringe, one side or the other. Those are the groups of people that mobilize and vote in the highest numbers. It's not the Joe Blow down the street that needs to be voting, but he or she's busy and can't get there, so they just say, screw it. I don't have time. I'm not going to be able to do it, so I'm just not, right? So I don't think we should come up with more ways and ideas to keep people from the ballot box. That was kind of a long-winded, response to your easy question, but I don't think this is necessarily an easy question when you really think about, what this is about.
Well, and I kind of want to read, and this is from oklahoma.gov on absentee voting. This is absentee voting is a secure and convenient way to exercise your right to vote. Goes right to what you were saying, man. The deadline to request an absentee ballot is 5 p.m. the third Monday, 15 days prior to an election. So if you're requesting an absentee ballot, you're already aware that you're probably either not available for that election and or already somewhat deposed where you can't go to the election. I'm with you. I think any legislation that pulls voter turnout down and is, in my opinion, and I'm not met Representative Jenkins. I'd love to have a conversation with her. If anyone knows her and she'd like to explain this to Matt and I, we'd love to have her on the podcast. But anything that to me that diametrically opposes rock the vote, go vote, all the stickers, and basically says the only way we'll accept it is if it's in person is a little bit I don't want to say Representative Jenkins this way, but I'm just going to say as a whole feels a little big brotherish. Come vote when we tell you can in person, and then there's no other way to vote. And so I'm with you. I think limiting people's voice and ability to vote is not the way to get proper
Yeah,
representation
and
and or
again,
election results.
I'm I'm not even against requiring in-person voting, but to me, I think if that's the only method to vote, or we clamp down on earlier absentee ballot voting, let's have an election week then, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you really want to have live voting, in-person voting only, so you can check IDs, or whatever the reason is for this, which I think there are probably several that maybe is not listed in that bill as to the real reasons why this seems to be an issue. Then hey, how about Monday through Friday? This is the voting week. We don't have a voting day. We know a lot of folks are busy, may or may not be able to get out to the poll on election day. We would love to see you in person. We think there are some inherent weaknesses in the security of absentee or vote by mail. Okay, great. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5,
Mhm.
all the polling places are open. To me, that would be a way that I could probably get behind in-person voting only. But until or unless someone can explain what the major concerns are and prove that they are significant concerns, I, I don't understand the reasoning behind shutting down absentee ballot requests.
Right. And there's a reason why businesses and even municipalities stopped saying in-person payments only. They started saying you can send us a check via mail. Why? More people are apt to cut the check and put it in the mail the next day and get it done. Because when you get that absentee ballot, I've never actually had to do that because I've always been able to vote in person. But I imagine, and maybe we should get a sample one sometime from the election board office, but I'm sure it's very evident what it is. And I'm sure it has the laws on that the person it's registered to is the only one who can vote. And on the website, it does quote the article of that if you're the one, if you vote in someone else's name, it's a federal offense and things like that. So there are laws against it. And so yeah, I'm with you, man. I think it's more of a reactionary thing to a hypothesized thought to a federal uh what is it, federal kind of chatter where it's honestly like this is an Oklahoma bill being put into our house. It's not a federal bill, it's an Oklahoma House bill being put into and by the way, we're one of the worst states with voter turnout, one of the lowest states with voter turnout. So you're going to take us from 49th to 50th. We may not even register on the voter registration scale. And so I just don't see a way in which why and even having to explain to someone, there's sometimes with disability things like there's not a little bit of HIPAA violation in this. Like I don't need to tell the government that I have treatment or dialysis or this or that. It's just I can't vote in person. Give me a ballot. I don't need to tell you my life story just
and,
to
and
use
then
my right.
you're 100% right. And then what's the enforcement mechanism? I mean, is someone going to argue if I check one of those 9 boxes, or hell, if I check all the boxes? I mean, am
Right.
I not going to get a ballot? I mean, what's the enforcement mechanism here?
Yeah, it just
They're
it
gonna send a they're gonna send an agent out to see if I'm, sick, or I'm at the I got to bring a doctor's note before they send me my absentee ballot.
right. And if it's an illness, well, you can't if it's not 3 weeks before, you can't even get it. So if I get the flu the week of, I can't get an absentee ballot. They act like I can just scroll down to what carry out corner here in Ada and pick up an absentee ballot out of the Ada news machine and vote. It's a secure process. And so I think it's a
Yes.
reactionary bill to something that's at the federal level.
Yeah, I would like to hear more of the reasoning behind why this legislator thinks this is a good idea. Because there may be great, wonderful ideas that I'm just totally missing. I just haven't seen the argument made that is convincing to me that this is a problem.
Yeah, and
Again, to your point, one of the lowest voter turnout states in the nation. We're gonna go ahead and lop off another 5%, 3%, whatever the number is.
right. Yeah, and let's
But
go
hey,
back.
I'm all for encouraging people to show up and vote in person. So maybe we should try to get a carrot instead of a stick here, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there are ways that we can encourage people that are voting absentee, or they're just, don't want to go to the poll. Maybe there are some ways to encourage that, in-person turnout, which I'm all for that. But, you know, let's figure out what the carrots are, and not the sticks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen in the past where places we've been where we've worked and been, they've given you an extra hour on your lunch break to go vote during election day. There's this whole thought process at the federal level, make the presidential election day a national holiday. And so then the argument is, well, then should the state make a half day holiday for election day, or should it be a state holiday for election day? Like if you're going to force in-person turnout, then you're going to have to really give people a chance to vote either by. And then how do you affect small businesses? How do you affect large businesses? How do you affect commerce? People already say we got more than enough holidays. Some people say we don't have enough. So it'd be interesting to see if you really want to go to in person, and that's really the drive, and you think it's the most secure way to vote, then you're going to have to facilitate a way in which the whole state can go vote equally with equal opportunity, and not
Yeah,
just those.
and that's why I like the voting week. But I'm also an elections data geek, and I like watching returns at night, and I like knowing the winner or having a good idea of what the winner is, right? So that's the potential negative of, a week. Just, me that likes to sit here and watch the election returns.
Yeah, and we watch. Me and you laugh all the time, and we have a friend Weston that we'll chat back and forth with. We'll watch results and say who we think are going to win, and be shocked when we see people who we think are going to win just get decimated because they didn't even campaign. And you just have this kind of thought of if you take absentee, because the first number you generally see is absentee voting, because they can count those early. Polls close at 7. Absentee ballots are already counted because, again, it's 3 weeks before. They already know that count that goes in. That's normally what you see first. And so I just think if it was in-person voting, it would be polls couldn't close at 7. They'd have to close at 8 or 9. Results would last into the next day or two. And then you got the cost of poll workers, all this. And so it just doesn't seem to make sense. I'm with you. I think I'd like to hear more from Representative Jenkins why this is pitched. But either everyone's got to have the day off because you got to have an equal right to vote. It is an American right that we have to vote, or you have to have an equal voice represented, which I think absentee voting and ballots give that voice.
Yeah, and I would say it's a responsibility, not a right, right? Because if we're really going to have government, for the people, by the people, how else how else can the government operate if all citizens aren't participating?
Yeah, and I'd be
Hey,
curious
I
if
do.
good.
No, I was just going to come at this from a little bit different angle, and again, not to pick on the writer of the bill, but who in a election race stands to benefit the most with lower voter turnout.
It's
And
always
then
the
I think that would
incumbent.
be the incumbent. So then the question is, do we want incumbent politicians dictating how, when, and where citizens vote, right? Say I've got a big election coming up. I have a challenger that, just may wipe the floor with me. You know what? Again, potentially the first thing someone may think is the lower the voter turnout, the better result for the incumbent, right? So again, pure speculation here, but an incumbent that knows they've got a tough race coming up might be incentivized to try to generate lower voter turnout as opposed to higher voter turnout. And again, I'm not saying anyone's doing this, but there is a question of, is it is it right for current elected officials to be changing or dictating voting times and patterns and places, right? When I've done enough data analysis to absolutely know the lower the voter turnout, the higher the chance the incumbent has to win. So
Yeah.
we just have to be really careful when we're making these types of changes. Are we not stacking the deck towards the people that are actually writing and voting on these bills to become law?
Yeah, that's what I was curious about. And and this article does say, which I want to give the who authored Dale Denwalt authored this on the 10th of February, and then he updated it um on the 20th of February. But it narrowly made it out of committee, and so it's advanced to election and ethics committee. It was tied again, and then it narrowly made it out. And so my question is, it's in these committees and on the floor, but will it come to the people? Because I think if this one doesn't come to the people, then that's a problem. And I'm going to laugh if absentee voting gets doesn't get voted on by those you know, you almost want to say like, hey, everyone, absentee vote for this state question just to prove that it works and that we want it.
Right.
I'm with you. I'm a huge proponent for in-person voting, but I am a huge opponent of anybody affecting anybody's right and or way and or ability to cast their vote if they want to.
Yeah, if you're a registered valid voter, I don't know that I care how you vote. I just think you should. So
Yeah,
I'm totally against squeezing or lowering or limiting the ways in which I can vote if I'm, whatever all the requirements are to vote, a citizen, registered, I go to my polling place, whatever. If I can vote, it ought to it ought to be made extremely easy for me to do so.
agreed. And I think we just keep saying the same thing, so I don't know how much more we have to cover on it. But if to people listening and watching, if I was you, you live in the state of Oklahoma, pay attention to House Bill or HB 1515. It's moving through committees. It's making it through, which should be a little bit concerning to all of us citizens that a bill about the way we vote is making through committee. Now it still hasn't hit the floor yet, and it may lose in a blaze of glory on the floor because this may just be Representative Jenkins' way of trying to do something for someone that's asked her to. But pay attention to it. These are bills. Matt and I talk about this all the time. These are bills that actually really do affect the way you cast your vote, share your voice, and the way you elect your elected officials, not just your president, but your governor, your representative, your senator, and your sheriff. Because let's be honest, this would affect all elections, not just one election. So, Matt, anything else you got to add?
Nope, I don't.
All right, y'all take it easy.